One of my favorite pastors I enjoy listening to from time to time starts every sermon with a prayer. And in that prayer, he always says, Jesus, we're available to you. And I love that he starts sermons that way, as if we're open to hearing what you have to tell us today in the sermon. But it also has me thinking, are we available to God throughout our lives, right? Not just on Sunday morning in a sermon, but are we available? What do I mean by that? Well, look at a couple examples from the Bible. When you look at when Jesus called the first apostles, the Bible says that when he asked them to follow him, they immediately dropped what they were doing and followed him, right? So they were available. They had margin. They had space to just go do that. And they said, we heard the call of the Messiah. We're going to go. Contrast that with in Luke 9, Jesus says to a couple other people, follow me. And the first one's like, well, I need to go back and bury my father. And the next one's like, well, I want to go back and say goodbye to some people, some family and friends. And not that those are bad things to do, but what he was getting at is, I'm not your priority. Right now, you've got other things that are more important and you don't have space for me in your life. And so they didn't follow him. And so I think about that in our lives. Like, where are we as far as availability to God? It's easy to get so overburdened, right? With kids' sports and vacations and work and just all these things we have going on around our lives. The question we have to ask ourselves is, do we have any margin? Do we have any white space for God? The same, I think, is true in our finances, right? We can get so leveraged with paying for the house and vacations and schooling and sports teams again and cars and whatnot, that we all get so leveraged in debt that there's no room for God to say, hey, I need you to bless somebody in this way. I need you to help this person who's in a bad spot. And we're like, how am I going to do that? I don't have any margin at this point. And that can happen in our hearts too. Really, it's a heart issue of, are we open and available to God? This first became really evident to me probably 25 years ago. I was at work and I was walking to my office, and I actually put my hand on the door handle to go to my office. And I literally felt God say in my heart, I need you to go talk to this person. And it doesn't happen to me very often, but it happens to be sometimes. I was like, okay. So I turned around, went into this other office and just went in and said, hey, how are you doing? And this person for like the next hour just poured out to me all these struggles and stuff that I didn't know was going on. And as if God was confirming it for me at the end, this person was like, man, you don't know how badly I just needed that, just to be able to talk to you and have you listen and talk to me about this. And I was like, okay, God, like that was a real example of being open and being available. And so in my life, I'm nowhere close to perfect at it, but I try to just be available to what the Spirit is telling me of, either in finances or in conversations with people, or just being available and not creating so much stuff and space in my life that I don't have room for him. And so I just encourage you to do that. Again, I'm nowhere perfect at it, but it's just being open to what God's telling us and listening for his voice, and just knowing that, letting him know, just like the prayer says, God, every morning I'm available for you. Use me in the way you want to. Hope that encourages you. Live with grace, friends.